All right, this is Mr. Anderson for Kellogg Community College Math 101. We are going to cover section 3.1, problems numbers 5, 15, and 16. This is actually in the fourth test that we're about to cover. The concept of this chapter is that we are looking at ways to solve for two variables with two equations. Now, in chapter 3, they wanted you to do everything with a table, but there's a much easier way to do this than the way that the book would recommend. And so let's just kind of get started here. In problem number 5, they talk about a bank loan was given out for $120,000. Part of the bank loan was given at 8% interest mortgage rate, and the other was at 18% annual credit card rate interest. So the bank received a total of $10,000. But what I'm going to do first is write down the total equation. It gave out x plus y to get $120,000. Now, part of that was at 18% and part of it was at 8%. Now, this is my total equation. This is telling me that some of that loan was given out at 8%, some of it was given out at 18%, and the total was 120. Now, how come my 8 and my 18 don't show up in this equation? Well, that's because it shows up in this equation. The 8%, or the 0.08x, and the 18%, the 0.18y, that's going to be equal to the $10,000 that we received in interest rates. So this is our interest rate equation. This is our total equation. Now what we need, since we have a stacked equation, is we need to solve for one of these two variables. The variable that I'm going to solve for is x. So I'm going to take my equation on top and multiply everything by negative 0.08. I like multiplying by a negative because what that will do is it will give me opposites for my x's, and that way I can simplify and get the answer a lot better here. So let's go and do that. In my top, I've got negative 0.08x, and then I have my plus negative 0.08y. And then what I'm going to do is take my $120,000, and on my calculator, go 120 grand times negative 0.08, and that gives me negative 9,600. All right, so there's my equation on top when I multiplied everything by a negative 0.08. On the bottom now, I just transfer my other equation over. 0.08x plus 0.18y is equal to 10,000. Okay, draw my line. Crisscross cancel right there. These simplify. Nothing actually cancels. It simplifies to make 0. And this here, negative 8/100ths and 18/100ths makes this 0.1 or 10/100ths or 1/10. Now, if I put these two together, it makes a positive 400. Now, what I'm going to do is divide everything by 0.1, a tenth, and my y is equal to 4,000. So my y is 4,000, which means that out of my $120,000 loan, only $4,000 was put on the credit card at 18%. So if my y is 4,000, so x plus 4,000 is equal to 120,000, well, it's just a simple subtraction problem to figure out my x. Just subtract 4,000 from both sides. The amount that was put on at 8% to give me my $10,000 interest rate is going to be 116,000. All right, that was problem number 5. Now let's look at problem number 15. Problem numbers 15 and 16 are the same kind of problem, except what makes this trickier is that actually the x and the y aren't the two mixtures of chemicals. X is the mixture of the first chemical, and y is the total mixture. Let me read the problem to you. It asks, how many ounces of a 15% alcohol solution, so that 15% alcohol solution would be 0.15x, must be mixed with 4 ounces of a 20% solution. So instead of a variable y going here, we're going to put 4 down because we know how much of the solution there is. And then it says to make a 17% alcohol solution, which, you know, again, we don't know how much is in the total there. But all they're really wondering is, like, how much do you have to add to the 4 ounces of this chemical to get the 17% mix. Because maybe, you know, maybe the doctor or the chemist wants, you know, a 15 instead of a 20% or a 15% solution, they want 17%. Well, we need another equation to stack or balance this, and the other equation is going to be my total equation. My x plus 4 equals y. But in this case, it's a little harder to understand that because we're not talking about money. We're talking about, you know, we're not talking about like the total interest rate or the total interest made or anything like that. So it's a little bit harder to generate this equation. Now, I showed you in class that there's ways to do this using the stacker method so you can get things to eliminate, but I also can show you a way to use substitution. Now, first of all, there's a little bit of simplifying I can do at the top here because the point 20 can be multiplied by the 4, and the point 20 can be multiplied by the 4, and that will give me, I'm just rewriting the top equation now, 0.15x, and then plus, now 0.20 times 4 is 0.8 equals 0.17y. Now, do you notice that the second line, that x plus 4 is equal to y? Well, I can plug that right in for my y right there, and now I can start to solve for x. Now let me drop everything down here. I'm dropping it vertically. 0.15x plus 0.8 is equal to 0.17. Now, instead of the y, I'm going to rewrite my x plus 4. Now, since this equation is completely written as x, this speaks to what the problem is asking about. How much of that 15% solution do we need? All right, so here we go. I'm type in 0.15x plus 0.8 is equal to 0.17x using the distribution property, and then 0.17 times 4, that's going to be 0.68 or 68 hundredths. Now I get to solve for x. I'm going to subtract the 0.15x, or the 15 hundredths x, from both sides. Draw a line. Okay, that simplifies. The 0.8 drops down. This also drops down. 17 minus 15 hundredths is 2 hundredths plus the 0.68. All right, so we're getting close to the end here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract my 68 hundredths from both sides. Draw a line. These simplify. So this makes a 0.8 minus my 0.68 gives me a total of, let me see here, gives me a total of, I'm just wondering if I made, oh, there we go. I'm just checking my work here. I'm sorry. This gives me a total of 0.12. And for those of you, maybe the thing I caught myself on, 0.8 is 80 hundredths, and 80 hundredths minus 0.68 hundredths is 12 hundredths. And then drop down my 2 hundredths. Divide both sides by 2 hundredths. And x is going to be equal to 12 hundredths divided by 2 hundredths on the calculator or in your head. The answer is 6. So it will take 6 ounces with the 4-ounce solution to make a 10-ounce solution of 17%. And that's problem number 15. Now, to round this out, I will do problem number 16. The answer is not in the back of the book, but if you want to know the answer before the problem starts, you can pause the YouTube video here and know that the answer is 160. Now, you can unpause this to see the full answer right here. It says, in the book, how many ounces of a 50% alcohol solution, so we're looking at 0.50x, must be mixed with 80 ounces of a 20% solution, that's 0.20 times 80, to give you a 40% solution. This is 0.40 times y. All right, so with that in mind, let's see what we got here. We are going to take our x plus, this is our total equation, 80 equals y. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the top and do a little simplification there. 0.5, instead of 50 hundredths, we can write that as 5 tenths. And 0.20 times 80, we can multiply that and get an answer of 16. And 40 hundredths is the same thing as 4 tenths. So that simplifies a lot of our decimals there. And then we got our 8 plus 80 equals y. All right, now I'm going to do the same thing as I did before. I'm going to plug my x plus 80 in for that y. It is possible to solve this another way. Whoops, it looks like I'm here on a Sunday, so the lights turn on with motion sensors. All right, sorry about that. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to plug this in for this. So I'm going to take my, I'm just rewriting my equation. I'm going to drop this down vertically. 0.5x plus 16 equals 0.4 times the quantity of x plus 80. All right, so we're going to distribute this here and here. Rewrite my left side equals 0.4x plus 32 if you multiply 80 times 4 tenths. Now I'm going to subtract my 0.4 or my 4 tenths. Draw my line. 5 tenths minus 4 tenths is 1 tenth x plus 16 equals 32. Subtract my 16 from both sides. Draw a line. 1 tenth x is equal to 16. Divide both sides by 1 tenth. And x is equal to 160. So, in summary, it will take 160 of the 50% material, 160 ounces of the 50% material, to blend with the 80 ounces of the 20% material to get 40%, or a total of 160 plus 80. That's going to be 240 ounces for 40%. Now, of course, this is the only answer that you're going to be looking at, and on the test, you're going to have to set this problem up. And so what I would do is practice setting up the problem. Solving would also be great. That will get you a little more points on the test. But I thank you for watching today. 3 pretty challenging problems in section 3.1. Feel free to email me with any questions.